Today on Lydia's Books, I'd like to talk a little bit about Stephen King books. I'm currently reading Fairy Tale, but I would really like to talk about what I just finished reading, which is the lightning-themed revival. That's fitting, isn't it? I mean, I love lightning. Who doesn't like a good thunder shower? Who doesn't like a good thunder roll? Who doesn't like to watch a storm come across a lake? Or if you're at a high enough vantage point, watch lightning hit something. Or if you're on the street in Toronto, watch it hit the CN Tower over and over again, which is pretty cool, really. That's one of my favorite things that I've ever seen. But yeah, revival. I don't have the dust jackets on right now because I store the dust jackets separately with my books. I think they just look better on the shelf. And while I am a book collector, I have quite a few books. I'm not a collector in that I'm worried so much about getting first editions, like I believe that this is, and this is. This is really quite new, Fairy Tale. And I'm enjoying it a lot. These have some parallels in just some of the things that go on as far as car accidents and talk of all that shit starting in E when it comes to music. There's not a musician so far in this book, but Revival is more of a rock Bildungsroman than anything. Now I'll throw a picture up so that we can see the cover. I love this cover, by the way. Lightning striking something. In some versions it's a church with this sans serif font, great big Stephen King revival. And there was a really cool conversation on a publishing YouTube channel that I stumbled across talking about when you're a very popular author, your name can go above the title of the book. And you see that with a lot of Stephen King books. And I think people read so many Stephen King books. This is like his 53rd book or something. And it was published like almost 10 years ago now. But yeah, people see these covers and they see the big title. They see James Patterson up in bold. They see, whatever writer, J.D. Robb. It's the first thing you see. And they think that's how you design a book cover. Au contraire, it is not. The title should really go above. And when it's in a rack, you want them to see the title more so than your name when you're starting out or not as popular, or if you want to sell it on the title alone. If I saw a bunch of Lumley sitting there, I don't know if I'd be as enticed if I would have seen Necroscope. But anyway, I digress. Revival was really, really great. I had been recommended this book online and offline for years. My friend Chris over at Perfect Books, hi Chris, really amazing bookseller and one of the people that arranged my first signing for my book Night Face. He recommended this book quite heartily at one point years ago, and I didn't own it at that time, so it was like, yeah, I'll get around to it. But I did make that note because somebody who has read a lot, who knows my tastes, had recommended this book. So when it came round for RG's Devil Ship to do All in August, you saw the poll. I figured there was a few authors I wanted to read that I own a lot of, like Lumley. I do own a lot of Layman, but I read that a lot. I own almost a whole collection of V.C. Andrews and I've not read it all. And some Stephen King. I've read probably 40-some Stephen King novels, but I hadn't read Revival or Fairy Tale or The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon, which is up next. I was a little bit behind in my reading because I started wrapping up books that I was reading last month that I really wanted to get to. Mostly because I might bump into one of the authors, S.J. Shank, at DreadCon, but that's for a later video. Absolutely loved his book, Knave of Graves. Highly recommend it. But Revival, I wanted to get to so badly, and I was slow at getting to it. I was busy while I was reading it, but I did tear through it in only like really 2 big reading sessions. It's like 350 pages, something like that. Fairy Tale is another story, which I'll touch on at the end. But this story follows young Jamie. He meets a reverend of their town, a pastor that stops in, Charles Jacobs. Now, this reverend or pastor or whatever he is, he introduces himself in an interesting way where he sort of shows this young Jamie a secret. And Stephen King handles these scenes pretty well, where it's like a little boy alone with an older man. And the little boy's like, God, this is getting weird. And he's a weird dude. He's obsessed with electricity. And he tells him about a place where there's a huge, like, semi-natural lightning rod, which he may have installed himself on a mountainside, where lightning hits it. And that they kind of pull the taffy on that. So it's not till maybe, I guess, a quarter of the way through the book where we have this lightning striking scene, which is really similar to the front cover. And I lived for that because I didn't know a lot about this book going in. I didn't know it was Frankenstein-ish. I didn't know the triple entendre with the title of Revival. Revival being this is revolving around Charles Jacobs, this pastor, who Jamie meets when he's really young. He has this very bad sermon where he basically tears God a new one and like beats feet, leaves town because his wife and child have been killed in a car accident, which is extremely gruesome. If you're looking for Stephen King that is like older Stephen King, very gruesome, greatly supernatural, and follows very well-developed characters, this is a really good pick. But yes, so it's this revival that Pastor Reverend Jacobs goes on later in life, because we follow Jamie through a drug addiction, a career in music, to young adulthood, to middle age and beyond. Like, we follow him throughout this entire book, and I really love stories like that. I especially love short stories like that. And you might look at this and be like, it's long, but compared to Fairy Tale or The Stand or something, it's a pretty conservative Stephen King book. And I did tear through it, like I said, even though it took me a long time. It was only a few sessions of reading. I really, really enjoyed Revival. It's the revival of, in a more macabre way, of perhaps the dead. Eventually, maybe. The revival of something within people, perhaps. The revival of old techniques that are lost to time. The revival of somebody from drug addiction back to their former self. Jamie goes through all of that. Some characters we meet go through things like that. And it's the revival, of course, the religious revival that tours around, where Jamie catches up with the Reverend later on in life. And I really like that person sort of reappearing. It's a technique that Stephen King talks about in the introduction as the fifth business, or I think it's in the beginning chapters. Jamie themselves, speaking to us as the reader of their story, describes what the fifth business is. And it's a character that feeds the plot that is not a antagonist or protagonist. They're just someone on the sidelines. And it is purported to come from drama and like the theater, which I think that Regina from Regina's Haunted Library could fill us in on that, if that is a term she's ever heard, because the author of a book, a Canadian author from the 70s, a book called The Fifth Business, kind of made up the term from what I understand. But yes, Reverend Jacobs is Jamie's fifth business, a person who's neither antagonist nor protagonist, yet drives the entire plot of their life. You'd have to read the book to really fully grasp that, how he's not a villain. He's not a hero. Charlie Jacobs is just this thing that puts the plot in motion, I suppose. A living thing, not like a device, right? So I really enjoyed this. I enjoyed the lightning aspects. I enjoyed the quasi-Frankenstein-ish aspects. I really like just following him through his life. I like the rock and roll horror aspects of it, and the drug addiction aspects of Jamie's life and how he beats it and how that has to do with Charlie Jacobs. Like, really liked all that. Really liked the end of this book. Like, wow. A lot of people don't like it. I've heard some really scathing reviews of it, but I've heard way more people that love the ending of this and how it all wraps up. There are sort of like some parallels to other books. If you're thinking of like the Stephen King multiverse, it is a standalone novel. It's not directly linked to that. They do talk about some towns nearby, like Castle Rock, and they talk about a gas station that is probably the gas station in The Stand. They talk about a band named the Gunslingers. They talk about this like null place, which is sort of like Todash space or time. And these people enter a place that is not unlike someone gazing into the deadlights. So there are some kind of echoes along the beam, so to speak, in Stephen King multiverse speak, where this book kind of fits in. And I found some echoes between this and Fairy Tale, which there's probably, I think, 10 years between those two books. So it's just neat to see his voice being so strong from the beginning of his career to now. He still sounds like Stephen King, and I don't believe he addresses the constant reader like he often does in his forewords, but this whole book is full of fan service where you hear Stephen King's voice and Stephen King terms, and he does Stephen King things, and it starts out in 50s, young boy, small town USA, and then crisscrosses the nation. So it is very Stephen King in that way. A perfect summer read. I really had a lot of fun with it. The review for this is also up right now at typicalbooks.com. I'm also having a lot of fun with Fairy Tale, which, like I said, have some echoes. There's some car accidents in both of these books, which may be an echo of Stephen King's real life as far as his life and religion and addictions and just the supernatural echoing so strong in all of his work and these two books. Fairy Tale has been a bit of a slog, though, because, again, I'm being very busy. I had read the sample. If you've been on the fence for Fairy Tale, there's a pretty robust sample of 17% of the book, I think, on Amazon when you click on read a sample. And I had started reading it when I had some spare time on my lunches, which really helped. So I'm so tempted to get the ebook of this so I can read at home and on my commute and at work on lunch. I'm really tempted because it is a thicker book and I'm enjoying it so very much, but we'll see how it goes. I had said that if this bores me, and bore is a strong word, but if it bores me, then I'll put it down, finish it another time, and I'll go on to The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon so I can get this all done in August. All in August has been organized by RG Devilship, Roya, and it is to choose one author, and this is that author that I chose. So, yes. I'm having a great time with it. I wish I could be reading other books because there's some extreme horror books on my shelf. There's other books that I've taken. I have a review copy of the most recent Eric LaRocca that was sent wonderfully by Titan Books, so I really want to get to all those. But I am languishing in Stephen King land. Next month, Regina from Regina's Haunted Library and co-host Alex, the Bookybus, have a new readathon called Vamptember, which I'm really tempted by, but we'll see. You know, there's other things I really want to get to reading, so maybe one vampire book next month, but I'll be wrapping up all this Stephen King in the meantime. When it comes to revival, I have had so many recommendations before starting this, or when I announced that I was going to read this, so many people saying they loved it and that they thought I would love it. You're absolutely right. Every single one of you were right. Even people who didn't really like it so much. But if you've read it, let me know what you think in the comments below. As far as a little channel note, I know I haven't been posting as much or as regularly. I have, of course, achieved 6,500 subscribers. Thank you so much, which is wonderful. I've moved my camera around a little bit and readjusted lighting, and I'm using a different microphone. I was able to figure out a way to connect my good Shure microphone that I use for podcasting to my camera. So we'll see how that sounds. And I'm trying a different setup on the tripod. So it's from Prime Cables here in Canada. It was only like $6 or $7 for a very good desk mounted tripod. So I don't have a wobbly thing anymore. I have a proper tripod. So I guess it's a proper monopod, more accurately. So we'll have to see how this works with my rearranged lighting setup thanks to a new monopod, which is a little lower. So we'll see what the angle's like. And of course, maybe way better audio. So we'll have to see once I'm done editing this. But yeah, if you liked the other setup, or if you have any input on the sound of the show, definitely let me know. Speaking of the sound of the show, my husband has a new album out, Vaguely Cultish, available now on Bandcamp, so definitely go check that out. He had a listening party, which was super fun. Thank you if you showed up for that. I know that Michael from the Horror Gardener showed up, and Thomas from TN Comedy showed up, so that was super great. Anyway, thank you so much for hanging out today. If you've read Revival, like I said, let me know. If you've read Fairy Tale, let me know what you thought. I watched most of Ollie at Criminolly's review, but yeah, always curious to hear what you have to say, or if there's other Stephen King that you think I ought to be talking about. Thank you very much for watching, and have an ooky, spooky day.